Hello guys, so this is kind of a video that feels out of the blue because I've never addressed this on YouTube, and I don't think I've mentioned this on my blog Insta, which by the way is Maddie Contria. Go check it out. I guess I just kind of wanted to walk through my thought process and the kinds of questions that I had to wrestle with in terms of my faith and my recovery. To give a little bit of background, I did grow up Catholic. When I was 16, I was officially confirmed to the Catholic Church, but I kind of drifted away after that. I didn't really go to Mass until junior year of college, which was last year. And what kind of brought me back was this group of missionaries on campus, and they had a chalkboard sign that, if I recall correctly, asked something along the lines of, "What does Lent mean to you?" And I tell people that I was just drawn towards the brownies that they were offering, which kind of, but it was more so of, I had been wrestling with the idea of God. Not just a Christian God, but like any God, and what his role in the universe is. I didn't feel really comfortable dropping this question onto a friend. Not because I don't feel close to my friends, but just because I didn't want to overwhelm them. I wasn't sure if they would want this kind of conversation. Like, it's kind of, I guess it's kind of weird to just randomly at midnight text a friend, "Hey, by the way, I've been thinking about the meaning of life and whether there's a God or not, and if so, how he intervenes in our life." At the time, I did believe in God, but I wasn't sure if it was because I was raised that way, because it was easier to accept there was some benevolent God who wants to care for me. If I genuinely believed in God, if I was terrified of the consequences of not believing in God. And honestly, I still don't have the answer to that question. Anyways, that is another rant for another day. So I approached these missionaries, and I knew going in that it was going to be a very surface level conversation on a topic much deeper. I guess I just kind of wanted to start thinking aloud with other people, even if it was a very surface level conversation. And I knew that these people would be open to this kind of conversation. Like, why else would they be missionaries if they weren't fascinated by God and the meaning of life? I had a little brownie. It was like a little bite-sized brownie, and keep in mind that I did struggle with disordered eating, and I felt disgusted with myself. Looking back, I'm really shocked that I even could have one. I'm glad that I did, but it's surprising, to say the least. And I remember being really angry with myself and saying that to begin making up for it, I would follow all the fasting guidelines for Ash Wednesday. But I try to justify it by saying that it's because I'm trying to get back to church and I'm trying to get back to God. But looking back, it was definitely the guilt of not abiding by the rules that my illness put me in, if that makes sense. I guess that was kind of the thing with me and fasting, where I felt like if I was going to go back to church, I had to fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. And part of me knew that it was a slippery slope, that I would try to seek validation in doing the right things, like fasting on days of obligation. But I had told myself and convinced myself I wasn't doing it for my disorder at all. And even if my primary intentions weren't fueled by my disorder, it was certainly something that my disorder could cling on to. After I fasted on Good Friday, that was kind of when I really noticed that that was the case. I mean, looking back, I can see that it started earlier and that I was just looking for any reason to fast or to restrict and not have people worry about me. But I really noticed at that moment on Good Friday. I remember there was a party that I was at with a handful of friends. It was more so of a get-together than a party, but there were cheese and crackers and other kind of appetizer, snacky foods. I said that it was Good Friday, I wasn't going to engage. I mean, everyone was really nice about it. They're like, it was chill. And I remember when it was almost midnight, they were counting, like, it was like 11:58. A couple of them were like, oh my gosh, it's 11:58. 2 more minutes until you can come join us with our snacks. And I was dreading those 2 minutes because I was thinking, I don't have any other excuse now. I don't have anything else to latch onto. Like, I didn't have what I thought was a legitimate kind of reason to turn down the cheese tasting party. I mean, it wasn't a cheese tasting party, but like, you get what I'm saying. And I couldn't really say anything like I ate before I came because I had been fasting. And that moment, I think it was undeniable that fasting was just not a good idea. I wasn't doing it to bring myself closer to God. I wasn't doing it for spiritual reasons. I just wanted an excuse. For this year, I reached out to a few people. So I reached out to one friend. She's a lot more well-versed in Bible scholarly things than I am. And I reached out to her, asking her for her input. And knowing that she's not a stranger to disordered eating. The question that she told me to ask myself was, will this bring me closer to God? And the more that I prayed about it, the more that I evaluated my motivations, the more I realized the answer was no. The Catholic guilt, trademark, did kick in because I felt like I was being a bad Catholic for not fasting on a day of obligation. I was thinking I'm a terrible Catholic for not being able to fulfill this. Like, having someone who is knowledgeable about the faith and is studying the faith in a lot higher of an intensity than I probably ever will in my lifetime, tell me that I needed to take a step back and ask why I would be fasting really opened my perspective. Like, I know that there are exemptions for fasting, like people who are ill, the elderly, super young, etc. And even though eating disorders are an illness, it had been really hard for me to accept that my illness is legitimate. And I think kind of part of the reason why it had been hard to accept that was because it felt like my eating disorder is a choice. And of course there are some choices within recovery. Like I have to choose to listen to my body and my satiety and hunger cues over some arbitrary rules that my disorder is trying to implement. But at the end of the day, I didn't choose to have this struggle. I didn't choose to have the predispositions that would make me vulnerable to an eating disorder. I don't choose to feel anxiety over certain foods or food in general. And that's a legitimate illness that affects my everyday life. I don't know, maybe later in the future I will be in a position where I can. But that time's not now. And I reached out to another friend who then reached out to a priest. And I think the thing that shocked me was that she said that the priest didn't even hesitate to say, don't fast. It wasn't even a consider not fasting. It was a hard, don't do it. He used pretty much like the same arguments of the purpose of fasting is to bring myself closer to God and not to kind of find excuses for a certain behavior. So the priest essentially said that if the fast would do damage to the body, that is a legitimate reason not to fast. And even if fasting for one day wouldn't do immediate damage physically, I know mentally it'll make it that much harder to fight my disorder thoughts. And I don't want to say that it would erase my progress that I've been making, but it definitely wouldn't help. And my friend sent me a quote online from John Chrysostom. I'm a bad Catholic for not being able to pronounce his last name. But anyways, he said, "He therefore who eats and cannot fast, let him display richer almsgiving, let him pray more, let him have a more intense desire to hear divine words." I read a blog post on Nita's website from this Jewish woman. I remember that she mentioned that she was going to fast in other areas of her life that doesn't involve food. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there are other aspects of my life that if I want to grow spiritually and emotionally, frankly, there are things that I have to be more conscious about and more mindful about. This Ash Wednesday, I'm going to do a full body checking fast. And that terrifies me. For me personally, body checking is like evaluating myself in the mirror to make sure that I didn't suddenly inflate or just picking apart myself. Sometimes it'll involve me checking the size of my wrists in the middle of class, or poking certain areas of my body or pinching at certain areas. And sometimes it'll get to the point where I'm just filled with so much frustration and disgust when I catch a glimpse in the mirror that I'll just stand there feeling like I'm paralyzed. And obviously this is something that I've been aware that I do, but I feel like it's like those things where I don't realize that I'm doing it until I'm in the middle of doing it. And that's something that I'm working on. Thinking about all the time that I frankly wasted doing that I could be devoting to things that actually matter to me. For example, my spirituality. is horrific. Not only is that time spent, but also mental energy spent. And so, this Ash Wednesday, I think, for me personally, it makes more sense to fast in other areas of my life than the traditional definition of the word fast. And maybe in the future I will get to a point where my disorder won't pop up and I can fast in the traditional sense. I don't know. We'll see when we get there. But at least for now, and probably for at least the next few Ash Wednesdays, I don't think that it's good for me mentally, spiritually, physically, in any other possible sense. I mean, yes, I still do feel guilty that I'm not participating in that aspect of Ash Wednesday, but I'm trying to hold on to the knowledge that my personal fast is going to be serving its own different kinds of challenges that are just as legitimate as a traditional fast, and serves a purpose that is better for me than traditional fasting. This video is all over the place. I don't know, again, I don't know what the purpose of this video is. I guess partially to hold myself accountable, but also to reach out to other people who feel bad for not, I don't know. My thoughts are still scattered. Anyways, yeah. Hope to see you guys soon. Bye.